What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So another team that bit the dust in the playoffs is the Dallas Mavericks. They were finally dispatched by the Los Angeles Clippers in 6 games. But, in my opinion, a difference between Portland and Dallas is that while Portland's future is murky, I think Dallas' future is promising, much more promising. The Dallas Mavericks, as hard as it is to believe, now it's been almost a decade since they won their one and only championship back in 2011, 9 years ago. But in the last couple of years of the Dirk Nowitzki era, the Dallas Mavericks began to fall off as their star player began to decline as a basketball player, quite naturally. And they were in a rebuilding process anyway. But, Dallas is a team that, is on the rise. Of course, they have, Luka Doncic. They have Kristaps Porzingis, Tim Hardaway Jr. I believe they have Trey Burke. They reacquired Seth Curry from Portland, and I believe he was missing from Portland dearly. Sharpshooter, one of the greatest spot-up three-point shooters in the history of the league. If you think I'm lying, I'm not saying he's a great player. I'm saying he's a great spot-up shooter. Look at his percentage overall in his career. It's way up there. It's up there with his brother, and it's up there with Steve Kerr and, guys like B.J. Armstrong, Hubert Davis. He's way up there. Jason Capono. He's way up there with those guys. So, look, we all know Dallas is the darlings of many in social media and across this great land of ours, this great country. I love the Dallas Mavericks. They give us hope, don't they? And NBA was, ESPN and Fox Sports, a lot of those guys were rooting for Dallas over the Clippers. But, look, Dallas is an up-and-coming team, but they're going to have to work on some things, of course. They had the number one offensive rating in NBA history since although that's misleading because they haven't really tracked that stat since they've only been tracking that stat since 1990, I think 97 or something like that. So only been doing that stat for like 25, 24 years. So that doesn't track some of those older high-scoring teams from the 60s and 70s and 80s. But Dallas is very porous defensively. And we saw that throughout this series. You know what I'm saying? Wow. Some of these scores is ridiculous. Dallas had to give up an average of 130 points a game, at least, to the Clippers. I think they gave up 150 something in one game. But I do think Dallas has a promising future. Luka Doncic is a superstar. I give him that. You know what I'm saying? There's certain things outside of him that irritate me, but it's not him. It's just certain realities. But Luka is a great player, but he'll have to work on as he gets more acclimated to the NBA. He's already pretty much acclimated to the NBA, but he does have to work on his defense. At least he's not a very good defensive player. And the Dallas Mavericks as a whole are not a very good defensive team. They're only 18th in the league in that department. And to me, I think to be a championship level team, you have to be at least top 10 in defense. So they have to improve in that area. One of the question marks surrounding this team, other than shoring up the roster eventually, is going to be the health of Kristaps Porzingis. He's already suffered in his young career some serious injuries that have required surgery. I believe he's already had an ACL tear. So his long-term health, I just don't trust him long-term. I think that Dallas eventually may have to figure something out with that. But I think Luka is going to have to be the centerpiece of whatever they do. He's a great, phenomenal player, you know. But this team will be a team of the future. I think as, you know, Luka's only, 20 years old? 20 years old, something like that, right? 20? Maybe they'll turn 21. So, I mean, yeah, as the LeBron Jameses and the, you know, and some of these other guys finally leave the scene, you know, Kevin Durant, I believe he's over 30. You know, Russell's over 30. As a lot of these guys, James Harden has just turned 30. So as that generation begins to age and leave the scene, in the next few years, the Dallas Mavericks, I think, will be one of the best teams in the NBA, barring injuries. I think they'll be one of the best teams. Whether they become a championship level team, I think it's going to happen. And the reason why I think it's going to happen is, well, a part of me thinks it's going to happen for certain reasons. How can I say this on this channel without sounding like a complete and total ass? Certain realities in this country, when you look at who, you know, the NBA is trying to target as fans, certain fans that they've been losing over the past 20 years, generally, you know, gradually, since the Michael Jordan era, there's a certain particular fan base that has moved away from the NBA and kind of like basically just now watching college basketball to get their basketball fix. This team, you know, that could appeal to that team. So, yeah, I do think the NBA would have a vested interest in the long-term success for a team like the Dallas Mavericks. And I think anybody that says I'm being outrageous with that, I think they're being naive. There is certain realities that go on in this country. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why, you know, 15 years ago after the Malice at the Palace, if you would notice, that's when you really saw an influx of European players into the NBA. That's when you saw Steve Nash become the face of the NBA for a while. 2005, 2006, 2007. They were really pushing Steve Nash, giving him the MVP award twice. So, yeah, I've seen this before. You know what I'm saying? And older heads older than me saw this in the 70s when the NBA was becoming too urban, supposedly, and we're losing a certain particular fan base. And then we saw guys like Larry Joe Bird. We saw guys like Kelly Tripucka. We saw guys... No, don't get me wrong. These guys could ball. But we did see certain stars. You know, you saw the Kiki Vandeweghes. Think about the early 1980s. You know what I'm saying? We saw the Kevin McHale's, the Bobby Jones. We saw some really good players who were, you know, not the majority race in the NBA. That, you know, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but that's just a reality. So, yeah, so I think Dallas will be good. You know what I'm saying, in the long run. Will they win a championship? I don't know. But I think they'll be a really good team. And, you know, the fact that Luka's not even in his peak yet, and, you know, once he really begins to figure out how to, you know, how can I say this? When he begins to figure out how to attack the game in certain situations, even better than he is now, the sky will be the limit for him. And they get a team around him that complements his game even better, then I think Dallas will have some good days ahead. But tell me what you guys think.